Okay, calm down. You got nervous, man. You got nervous, man. Okay, calm down.
Katie, you are muted again.
Why is this happening?
This seems to be a recent development where when you're first brought on, you're automatically muted. That never used to be the case.
Wow. Okay. Wow. StreamYard silencing me. StreamYard / Mossad / Zionist silencing me. No surprise there. So apologies for that. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. Very special show, the last show of the year. And we have some great guests for you. And we're going to be talking about some really important topics. We're going to be talking about also a little intra right-wing war that a lot of people are paying attention to. And we're going to be talking about, of course, Zionism. And also, apologies, I was going to do an extra show, a Pakistan update show, but I was sick. I had an eye allergy, actually, and I couldn't really be on screen because of that. So we're going to be bringing you more extra streams. Just stand by for the announcements about those. And that's a good reminder that you definitely want to subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, press subscribe and hit the bell. That way you won't miss any of the extra streams that we do. Also, please like the stream. That's a really easy way to support the show for free. It helps fight against the algorithmic suppression that we, of course, face. And please become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And to do that, you just go to that website, you sign up. If you sign up for $5 a month, you get extended interviews, bonus content, early release. It's really great. If you can't pull that off, but you still want to support the show, you can do that for $1 a month. So that's $12 a year. And you get to sleep well knowing that you are supporting the show. And we really literally could not do the show without you. We just wouldn't happen without that support. And what else do I want to make sure to tell you guys about? I think that's about it. Oh, please follow me on TikTok at KTHelps_. Again, that's KTHelps_. I'm going to try to do some original TikTok material, content, as the kids are calling it. So stand by there. It's interesting. All these different platforms have different aesthetics and types of things to do and like languages. Someone says, Katie, why are you rotated? I don't think I'm rotated. I think maybe that person means, why are you vertical instead of horizontal? Brad, you know what we may want to do? I did this last week. Do you think it's good to have in the description up top, like, this is the vertical stream, to access the horizontal one, go here, and vice versa?
We can do that. And then in the meantime, anyone who's viewing it on their mobile device, next to the title, you should see, if it's the vertical orientation, you should see like a little smartphone icon. So that's another thing to look out for. But we'll add that to the description.
Yeah, great. All right. And Andrew says he's on top of that. Okay, great. So we are going to bring on two wonderful guests on today's episode. The second guest is going to be Samuel Biagetti, who is the host of the Historian Explained podcast, which is a great podcast. He's also a historian. It would be weird if he wasn't. And we're going to be having a segment with just Sam. But before we do the Sam solo segment, we're going to have a Sam segment with our first guest. And our first guest is none other than the beloved, very popular, people always love when he comes on, Rabbi Yakov Shapiro, who has an extremely impressive and long resume. I will just say that he is the author of this great tome, The Empty Wagon, Zionism's Journey from Identity Crisis to Identity Theft. And that is a 1,381-page treatise on the difference between Judaism and Zionism. And we're actually going to be discussing that very topic today. It's right here behind me. Empty Wagon. There it is. You can see how thick it is. Okay. So without any further ado, let us bring onto the stage Rabbi Yakov Shapiro.
Hi, Katie.
Hello.
How are you? Thanks so much for having me back.
Of course. Thanks for joining. It's always a great time talking to you. You're such an expert in this and very learned, obviously. And how are do you say with Hanukkah, do you say how are the holidays, or do you say how is your Hanukkah?
Either is okay.
either. Okay. How was your Hanukkah?
Hanukkah was great.
You know, we were talking about this backstage, that something you pointed out that I never really realized is that Zionism has managed to conquer Hanukkah, at least commercially, right? Can you explain that?
Yeah, if you go into a department store during the holiday season in December, let's say you go into Macy's, so you'll see the Christmas display and the Hanukkah display. The Christmas display invariably has a color pattern. It's green and red and gold. The green and red, that's the holly and the berries. The Hanukkah displays, the Hanukkah decorations are almost invariably blue and white. Now, Hanukkah has to do with the lighting of a menorah. That will be gold, fire, red, orange, whatever. What does blue and white have to do with Hanukkah? The answer is nothing. Blue and white was designed to be the Hanukkah decorations because they are the colors of the Israeli flag. That's it, no more, no less. And Hanukkah is a holiday that the Zionists hijacked, and they like it better than all the other holidays for two reasons. The first reason is that Hanukkah is the only major Jewish holiday that's not in the Bible. We're talking about celebratory holidays, as opposed to today, let's say, the temple was destroyed, the second temple. It's not in the Bible. Purim is in the Bible. Passover is in the Bible. Sukkot is in the Bible. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are in the Bible. And we have a tradition as to what the holiday means. We know that they had one flask of oil which lasted 8 days. That's why we have 8 days of Hanukkah. The Zionists changed that because aside from the oil, there was also a war that the Jews fought, but it really wasn't a war. The Syrian Greeks had taken over the land, and they made decrees against the Jews that they can't be religious. Now, here's the rule. Jews would not take up arms against their oppressors if their oppression is just physical and material oppression. We would try to make peace, negotiate. That's one of the things that the Zionists hated about the Jews. They wanted to be tough men. The only time Jews would take up arms against their enemies is when God is attacked. It's not really the Jews. Not one Jew was in danger because of these decrees. All he had to do is give up his religion and he would be safe. The threat to kill Jews that remained Jewish was a deterrent. They didn't want the Jews killed. They wanted the Jews to give up the Judaism. So they decided to martyr themselves. The Jews who didn't really have a decent army to speak of, they took up arms against the Syrian Greeks with having in mind to die rather than give up their religion. But God made a miracle, and rather than die, they won the war. And after they won the war, they had conquered back the temple. Then they went into the temple, and they only found one flask of oil because of the vandalism that the Greeks did there, and that oil lasted 8 days. But the Talmud says that the holiday has nothing to do with the victory in the war. There are many reasons given for that. One of the reasons is that, well, we weren't interested in winning the war. They wanted a martyr. They wanted to die. They were giving their lives. But there are various reasons. But for whatever reason, the holiday of Hanukkah, according to the Talmud, is only because of the flask. The Zionists flip this on its head. Not only do they emphasize the the victory in the war, they don't believe that it was many fell at the hands of the few, as we say in our prayers, the strong fell at the hands of the weak. They celebrate Jewish strength and Jewish battle and Jewish army. And not only that, but they claim that the war was fought for national self-determination. Worse yet, there was a song, it's a pity, it's on YouTube, you can get it.
Yeah.
There's a song that was made, a Hanukkah song. You know, they have Hanukkah songs, right? So
Dreidel, that one. Hanukkah.
Well, that's some. Now, the education officer in the IDF once he composed a Hanukkah song. And the chorus, the first two lines go, Nes lo kara lanu pach shemen lo matzanu. There was no miracle of the oil. No, we did not find any flask of oil. The whole thing was our strength and our power of the Jews who went and beat their enemies. And they said that the entire Hanukkah story, as it is celebrated, is a myth that the rabbis made, and they actually go around singing this.
How can I find this song? Is there a way I can search for it, or like what would I Google?
Well, if you have a Hebrew keyboard, you would Google.
Just disconnected it.
Oh, I could bring it up for you if you want.
Okay, sure.
While we're talking, I could send you a link. Let me just open YouTube over here.
Right. And by the way, this is a good moment to like the stream if you haven't already liked it. Give it a thumbs up. We're getting a lot of nice comments. Thank you guys for your support. Let's see, Sparky, love you, Katie. Keep on trucking. Thank you. I will. Super sticker from Elliot ZP. And with gratitude from Yabbits. So thank you guys so much for this. And people are saying,
okay,
great.
Katie, I have your link. I'm going to put it in
Great.
the chat. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. The private chat?
I don't know. It's on the side of your...
Yes.
There it is.
Okay,
the
great.
reason why it's such a long URL because it's in Hebrew and the English. So you click on that, you'll get the song.
Okay, great. Brad, you got it, right? And while Brad draws that up, so can you just remind people what we're about to see? This is a Hanukkah song
composed by the education officer of the IDF. This is in the olden days. And it says it's that one right there, the middle one. The middle one. It's called Anu Notim Lapidim. We carry torches. Keep going if you want.
Maybe lower it a little, Brad, so he can say it over.
You got to wait for the chorus.
Okay.
I'll tell you when to make it louder.
Okay. Well, if you want to tell us what it says, then you won't want it louder.
Yeah, sure. You know what?
What?
Hold on. Give me a moment. It'll get there in a second. Okay. Neslo Karalanu, no miracle happened to us. Pach Shemen Lo Matzanu, we never found a flask of oil. We went down into the valley. We went up to the mountain. We revealed light, whatever, and then there was light. They take biblical verses and they corrupt them. This is Zionism. That's the difference between Zionism and Judaism.
Right. Well, it's fascinating that you said that because we heard enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Because
you can get the lyrics. I can send you the lyrics.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. The difference between Zionism and Judaism, more and more people, including Jews, although not religious Jews, obviously. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Religious Zionists, Jewish Zionists will argue that Zionism and Judaism are connected. Anti-Zionists who are secular will argue that religious Judaism and Zionism are connected.
Really?
Oh, I've heard. Yeah, have you not heard this argument? Okay, there are anti-Semites who argue that Judaism and Zionism is connected, obviously. Yes. But there are anti-Zionist Jews who say, I studied this, that, the other in Hebrew school. I've read this, that, the other, or the chosen people narrative, right? You hear that quite a bit. So I wanted you to respond to that. Also, talk about what the Talmud actually is. And then we're going to get into a discussion that's more focused on the Talmud during the second half. We're going to be watching a Candace Owens clip, and we're going to be bringing on Sam Biagetti. But just for dividing up the discussion, I think in a logical way, if you could talk about what the Talmud is, and if you could explain the religious Jewish opposition to Zionism, such that it exists.
Okay, so first, the idea that the way you describe the religious Jews saying that Judaism has to do with Zionism, it sounds like they were taught that in their Jewish day schools.
Right. And I'm talking about religious people who are both religious and Zionist. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they were taught that in their schools. We need to understand that it's not only Judaism. Christianity has the same divide. You have the evangelicals who are very Zionist. And if you were to go to the Pope or the Catholic Church and say, well, how do you explain the Zionism and Christianity? They would tell you, excuse me, that's Protestants. Those are Protestants. Those are evangelicals. Those dispensationalists. We're Catholic. We don't believe in that. We don't even think that they're full-fledged Catholics. Protestantism violates Christianity. We don't even believe it's like almost two different religions. The Jews have the same thing. That and the distance, though, between Jewish anti-Zionists versus the Jewish Zionists is greater than the distance between the Catholic Church and the evangelicals. We believe that Zionism is simple idol worship or heresy. Technically, they're two separate things, and it's both, if you really want to know. The Jewish opposition, and of course, it depends all on your interpretation. It used to be back in the olden days, in the days of Jesus, Christianity was an interpretation of Judaism. And there are Christians that'll tell you the same thing, that Jesus is in the Jewish Bible. And if I don't believe in Jesus, I'm not a good Jew, right? By the same token, there are Zionists that'll tell you, if I don't believe in Zionism, I'm not a good Jew. And all I need to establish over here, I don't need to go into the nitty-gritty regarding the interpretation of the verses and the religion. All we need to establish here is that we could all agree that they're two different religions. Just because there are many Jews who are Zionists, there are. They doesn't mean that that's Judaism, in the same way that just because there are many Christians who are Zionists doesn't mean that that's Christianity. I'm not saying who's right in terms of Christianity. I don't know much about Christianity. But I do know that there are two different religions for all practical purposes.
Right. That's interesting.
That's all we need to know here is that I don't think your viewers are interested in a scholarly debate regarding the interpretation of the Talmud regarding Zionism, but we do want to know that there are two different religions. It's very simple. Now, the reason for the opposition to Zionism, well, it's many. First, Zionism at its core is a redefining of what a Jew is. Before Zionism, and Bolshevism also did kind of almost the same thing. Before Zionism, everybody agreed Judaism was a religion. Even the break-off sects, there's Reform Judaism that's far from orthodoxy, but they agree it's a religion. Just they have a different interpretation of the religion. Conservative Judaism, it's a religion, but this is their interpretation. Even Christianity, it's a religion, but this is their interpretation. Okay? Jews for Jesus, it's a religion. The olden days, the Tzedukim, the Baisusim, all these break-off sects, Karoyim, everybody agreed. Came the Zionists and said, no, it's not a religion.
Right.
Judaism is a nationality. Judaism does not belong in the set of, let's say, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism. It belongs in the set of Spain, Spanish, French, Russian Jews. Okay. Now, how they make it into a nationality, that's a problem, because there are two problems. Problem number one, Jews had no national characteristics. We had no common land, language, or culture, but that didn't deter the Zionists because they actually synthesized them. They created a language that's modern Hebrew, and they actually beat up Jews that were speaking Yiddish. The Ashkenazi Jews spoke Yiddish. There were Jews in Spain that spoke another language, Ladino.
Right.
Right. And the Arab Jews, I have friends in Brooklyn, Syrian Jews, they speak Arabic, or at least their grandparents did, the guys my age. But the Zionists created a national language for the Jewish people, because language is one of perhaps the most important binding factor of a people. So they created modern Hebrew. The Jews never had a flag. We had 12 tribes. Each tribe actually had a flag. It had a symbol. They had a culture, a lifestyle separate, but there was no flag that united the Jews. We had no flag. The Zionists invented a flag for the Jews. We had no national anthem. We had no culture. We still don't. The Jewish Ashkenazi culture, or like where you live, the Upper West Side or Upper East Side, secular Jewish culture is a animal within itself, you know. Compared to the Yemenite Jewish culture, it's like there's nothing in common. The Zionists created what they want, a Jewish culture. Israeli culture is Jewish culture. Israeli music is sold in stores under Jewish music. Okay, Jewish food, hummus became Jewish food. Don't ask me why, how. Whatever is Middle Eastern, they created Middle Eastern names, and they wanted to change the entire Jewish religion into a people, meaning a nationality. Jabotinsky, one of the founding fathers of Zionism, who's more fascist-leaning Zionism, is the dominant one in Israel today. Netanyahu considers himself a student of Jabotinsky. Netanyahu's father was an actual very close student of Jabotinsky, an editor of his magazine. Jabotinsky believed the Jews are a race. Other Zionists did too.
And anti-Semites believe this too, right?
Yes, the Zionists and the anti-Semites love each other because put it this way, you don't see anti-Semites running around saying, look what Yaakov Shapiro says, Jews are a religion, see how bad the Jews are. You don't see that. You don't see the anti-Semites running around showcasing the anti-Zionist Jews and saying, look what the Jews are doing. Instead, you see them showcasing the idea that the Jews are a people, that the Zionists, that the Jews own Israel, that the Jews are, in fact, Adolf Hitler actually said this. Mein Kampf, chapter 2. This is where they got it from. And I'll explain a lot of the anti-Semitism that you see today in reaction to Israel is actually old Nazi propaganda. So Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf, chapter 2, it's called something like My Life and Studies in Vienna. There he says like this, that the greatest lie that these Jews have is they say that they're just a religion. They're regular Germans, just of a different religion, which is the truth. I'm an American as much as anybody else. I just have a different religion. He said, Hitler, that's a lie. They're really a completely different people. And any doubt I ever had about this, I may have had, was alleviated by the group called the Zionists, because the Zionists are Jewish nationalists, and they'll tell you the Jews are a nation. Israel, there was no Israel there, but now they'll tell you Israel is the state of that nation.
Right.
And Adolf Hitler actually used this to say, well, Jews, you don't belong in Germany. You belong out of Germany because you're not real Germans. And in fact, we knew that the Zionists were going to create this anti-Semitic trope, or solidify it, or encourage it, rather. They didn't create it. In 1917, when the Balfour Declaration was declared, there was one Jewish member of the British cabinet. His name was Edwin Montagu. And he was against the Balfour Declaration because he said that if you speak in terms of a national homeland of the Jewish people, you are making the Jews foreigners in their own nations. And aside from the anti-Semitism that Zionism generates and encourages, because again, the anti-Semites are not running around retweeting posts of Yakov Shapiro. They're running around retweeting posts of Netanyahu and of the Zionists and saying, look what the Zionists do. Any Jew that hangs up an Israeli flag to show that he's Jewish, it's like putting up a target on his house, and if they put it up in the neighborhood, it's like putting a target on the neighborhood. Zionists, they are so messed up in the head. Number one, they don't realize it. Number two, they don't care. But the first thing is,
or maybe they do realize it, right? Because you've pointed this out, that Zionism and Zionists require anti-Semitism.
Yes. Now, one of the questions they asked the early Zionists was, well, what is a Jew if it's not a religion? Remember, there was no Israel then. So Theodor Herzl basically said, a Jew is anybody the anti-Semites hate.
Right.
Jean-Paul Sartre said that, but Herzl said it before Sartre did. And Zionists need anti-Semites in order to, first of all, find purpose in the world. And they need it really in order to define themselves, because you take a Jew, let's say a Jew lives in Manhattan, not religious, doesn't believe in the Jewish religion, but they are a Zionist. You ask them, what is a Jew? There really is no consistent answer. It can't be an ethnicity, because your ethnicity, Katie, and mine, and the Yemenite Jews, and the Ethiopian Jews, and the Syrian Jews are not the same. Right. It's ridiculous. And never mind converts like Ivanka Trump's ethnicity and a Yemenite Jew's ethnicity are not the same. There is no answer except that a Jew is somebody who the Torah requires to fulfill 613 commandments. And I do want to mention something now that's confusing to people. Many of your viewers are probably thinking, well, if Judaism is a religion, how could you have not religious Jews? So I'm going to answer that.
Yeah.
Judaism is different than many other religions, perhaps all religions. I'm not sure. But religions such as Christianity or Islam, according to those religions, there's one covenant that God expects the people of the earth to fulfill. According to Christianity, everyone should be a Christian, right? According to Islam, everyone should follow Muhammad. Now, I once mentioned this, and some Muslim wrote in the comments, well, you don't have to be a Muslim. God will judge you, whatever it is. But there's one covenant. There's one set of, there's one correct religion, put it that way. And Muhammad is the prophet, and Allah is God. In Judaism, that's not true. In Judaism, not everybody has to fulfill the same covenant.
Right.
When Noah came out of the ark, God gave him a covenant, our tradition says, that had 7 commandments. You can't kill, you can't steal, you have to be a law-abiding citizen. It doesn't have to be Jewish law. You can't tear limbs off live animals and eat them. 7 basic civilizational laws, but they're laws given by God. About 800 years later, at Mount Sinai, Moses and the people that he led out of Egypt were given a different covenant. That's called the Torah. That had 613 commandments. All of humanity is obligated to fulfill the 7 Noahide laws. And if you want, you can convert and become one who are obligated to fulfill the 613. Other people are obligated to fulfill the 613. Those who are obligated to fulfill the 613 are called Jews, whether they are compliant or not.
Right.
It's the obligation that gives you the name Jew when used in that context. So other religions don't need a word to distinguish between which covenant you are obligated to fulfill. Jews do. If somebody says, I believe in the Torah, I believe in God, I believe in Judaism, how do I serve God? So I'll ask him, well, if you are, according to the Torah, a Noahide, you're obligated to fulfill these 7 commandments. If you are one of those people, a Jew, called a Jew, you're obligated to fulfill 613. It's very simple. Now, people can convert. So the Jews are not a people. We are united spiritually. There's all sorts of theology behind this. But in the simplest definition, a Jew is somebody who's obligated to fulfill the 613. So that's why in other religions, there is no word to describe the difference between covenant A and covenant B.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
So a Muslim means somebody who follows Islam. If you're not religious, you're not a Muslim. If you don't follow Christianity, you're not a Christian. If you don't follow Judaism, that means you're a non-compliant Jew. If
That's
you
what
are
I am.
obligated to do, if you don't follow the Torah, the 613 commandments, and you're a Noahide, well, then you're could be a compliant Noahide because you're not
Right.
Jewish. Regarding Jews who are not religious, we actually have other words. There's other categories. We use tzaddik, rasha, a righteous person, a wicked person, a scholarly person, and the Muslims have a similar word. We have a word kofer, which means a denier, somebody who doesn't believe in the Torah.
Oh, is that what I am?
I don't know. You can tell me if you believe that God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai and you believe in the 13 fundamentals of Jewish belief. If not, then you are. If
Right, I'll
you
have to
do
go over
believe
them.
it, then you're not.
Okay.
It's very simple. And a kofar is considered, Judaism is a meritocracy. A lot of things you'll see in the Talmud about Jews, they apply to religious Jews. Jews are not a people.
Right.
Any privilege that the Torah gives Jews only applies to religious Jews. And not only that, but I'm telling you as a rabbi that there are privileges given in this world and the next, but a average law-abiding Muslim who doesn't worship idols, and they have a monotheistic religion,
Right.
who doesn't worship idols, who doesn't kill, doesn't steal, law-abiding guy, doesn't commit adultery. He is closer to God than a godless heretic like Theodore Herzl or David Ben-Gurion or Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't believe in it. They are kofrim. I think the Muslim version of this word is kafir or something like that. But it's the same word. It's KFR. It's just the vowels are different.
Clip that.
What?
I was just saying, clip that. I'm telling people this is a good clip. Yeah.
You can go to Wikipedia and punch in KFR, and you'll find under that root the Jewish version and the Muslim version and the etymology of the words. And we have words called apikoiris, which means it comes from the word. It's the same word as Epicurean in English, but it comes from the Hebrew word hefker, meaning unbound. It means he doesn't consider himself obligated. These are various different words for people that don't believe in the Torah. And although they still retain the obligations of Jews, you cannot give up your obligation, because just as in Christianity, you can't just give up you can't be saved unless you're a Christian, if you're a human being, right? And in Judaism, if you are obligated to fulfill the Jewish covenant, the Torah, nothing you can do is going to deobligate you. Okay. And therefore, you could be considered a Jew in bad standing, or I heard the Mormons have a word for a Mormon that doesn't fulfill their obligations. I forgot it offhand. But a Jew in that sense only means that you are obligated to fulfill the Torah covenant, the Mosaic covenant, as opposed to the Noahide covenant. That's why you can have non-religious Jews. You have kofrim, you have apikorsim, you have wicked Jews who are rishoyim. Now, of course, we do distinguish between a Jew who knows nothing about Judaism, a baby, let's say, who was captured by non-Jews when he was a kid and brought up. He doesn't even know he's Jewish. So such a person is much less accountable for his sins because he doesn't even know he's Jewish, than somebody who is Jewish. And many people grow up ignorant of Judaism. They may even think that Zionism is Judaism. Right. Such ignorant people that were taught such things, if they don't really have free will or a choice to be able, if they don't know what's going on, I mean, God judges people fairly. Okay. Everybody according to their level. So that's a non-religious Jew. So first thing about Zionism is it redefines what it is to be a Jew, which means it is an attack on Jewish identity. Now, the reason the Zionists did this is because they wanted to change the character of the Jews, the aspirations of the Jews, and the values of the Jews. The Jews were a overly peaceful people, and I say overly by general standards of civilization. The Talmud says the Jews are not allowed to wage war against other nations or other peoples. And I use the word nation in quotation marks because we're not really a nation. We're not allowed to wage wars. We're not allowed to.
The Talmud says this.
The Talmud says this,
yes. But sorry, one thing. Can you explain what the Talmud is? Because not everyone knows
I will. Okay, so if you look in the Bible, or what the Christians call the Old Testament, there's a lot of things in there that really don't make sense or so totally ambiguous that it's just unintelligible. For example, it says that on a certain month and a certain day, it'll be a day of blowing for you. Yom Teruah yeh lochem. You will blow. It's a big holiday, but it doesn't say what the holiday celebrates. Okay? It says regarding Passover that it comes out in the spring month. The problem is that the calendar that the Jews use and the Muslims, the lunar calendar, loses 11 days every year to the solar calendar, which means that one year Passover will come out in the spring, another eventually will come out in the winter. How does that make sense? There are words. The Torah says, the Bible says that you should put frontlets, toitophois, between your eyes, but it doesn't explain what the word is. There are so many things. It says on the holiday of Sukkot, you should take the fruit of the pretty, good-looking fruit of a tree, but it doesn't say what fruit we're talking about. So clearly, God explains more to Moses than what is in the text. Moses was there for 40 days and 40 nights. He certainly asked God, hello, God, what does this mean? What does this day celebrate? Well, it celebrates Rosh Hashanah. How do you make these frontlets? So that's what we call tefillin. And there are like 10 laws that are required to make tefillin, and we know them because they're what we call halacha l'Moshe Sinai. God told Moses on Mount Sinai these laws, and they were handed down. There were other times where Moses asked God, okay, what's the law? And God told Moses, like a teacher. A lot of times a teacher is going to teach a class, and then a couple of students are going to come and say, okay, we have a question. What about this case or that case? And the teacher will say, you know what? I gave you the tools to figure it out. You figure it out on your own. And a teacher, even if left to his own devices, would sometimes come out with a different conclusion. He will give the student credit if they came up with their own conclusion. So God gave Moses, also on Mount Sinai, methodology about how to interpret the Torah. There are various different ways that we have: juxtaposition of words, juxtaposition of verses, order of things. There are all sorts of different ways. Now, sometimes there are disagreements amongst the rabbis, which is fine, just like there are disagreements amongst doctors or lawyers. But over here, God said, I want you to follow the word of my law. And if the law is not clear here, I want you to follow the methodology. And whoever's better at it, and you can't have a vested interest. There are requirements for a person who's qualified. And there are requirements not only for the person who's qualified, there are very, very strict requirements about how to do this. And a combination of things that were handed down by Moses at Mount Sinai, a combination of debates amongst the rabbis, for the most part, revolving around the methodology that God gave Moses on Mount Sinai, how to interpret those, not just random interpretations. I have no right to interpret the law because the Talmud was closed. We used to have prophets who spoke to God. In Judaism, as generations go by, we get further and further away from that level of supernatural experience. So we don't have miracles today like they had. Nobody splits the Red Sea today. No prophets talk to God, and nobody is qualified to be a Talmudic sage anymore.
Okay, but it used to be. It is a commentary, right, on the Torah, the Talmud.
It's a commentary, but it's not just a commentary like Cliff's Notes. It's a commentary that follows it's debates, commentary, comments, episodes, lessons,
analysis,
many things. There's about 7 generations. First, there was the Mishnah. After the Mishnah, there was 7 generations of Gemara in the Babylonian Talmud, where these things are discussed. But they're not just random discussions like the Congressional Record. They're all following the rules with divine inspiration, similar to prophecy, but technically not the same, by the people who are qualified doing what they're supposed to do according to the instructions that God gave Moses. I know that's complicated, but that's what it is.
Okay.
Now,
And we're gonna return to the content of the Talmud when we do that segment on Candace Owens soon. But I want to ask you about the opposition to the religious opposition to Zionism,
right?
Because we were talking about this offline the other day, and how a lot of people say, either critically or not critically, a lot of anti-Zionists say, well, religious Jews oppose Israel because they think that it can't exist until the Messiah comes back.
Okay, so the Zionists want you to think that is the only reason we oppose Israel, for 2 reasons. Number one, they want you to think that all Jews had the same aspirations. Returning home, the only question is when. We own Israel, the only question is when. They don't want you to know that they invented the entire thing. So they want you to think that. Secondly, they want to paint us as religious fanatics. All right, the
Right.
practical people, the people that are interested in saving Jewish lives, that's us. They have this religious thing that better, like, we should go to Auschwitz than have a state because of some messianic ideas. They want to paint their opponents as crazy religious fanatics, and they want to paint their ideology of Zionism as Judaism as a whole. The truth is that while it is true that it is prohibited in the Talmud, which derives it from verses in the Bible, it is prohibited for the Jews to leave their exile. There are different periods when God created, from the time God created the world until the Messiah. The periods of the prophets, periods of the patriarchs. We are now in the time period of exile. And God's cosmic plan for the world is that we must remain in exile. That means dispersed and non-sovereign. Jews should be anywhere in the world and non-sovereign, especially not in the Holy Land, because that is a messianic thing. Look, why did the Zionists pick Palestine more than Uganda? It's because it was a marketing ploy. Interestingly enough, the religious Zionist Jews, when the Uganda plan came up, voted for Uganda. Rabbi Reines of the Mizrahi religious Zionist organization movement, he voted for Uganda because said, all we need is a safe place. Why does it have to be Palestine? But the Zionists wanted to create strong Jews. They hated what they called the Golos Jews.
The exile.
And, I could give you a whole lecture on this itself.
Right.
Everybody from the olden day Zionists, from guys like Jabotinsky to Benjamin Netanyahu, when he said at the end of Obama's administration, when the UN declared the settlements illegal, and we abstained, everybody else voted against, we abstained. So Netanyahu made some provocative comments, and people told him that you're going to start a war. And his answer was, it was all over the papers. Enough with this exile mentality. People the exile mentality, if you Google that, you will find Zionists. It's a funny thing. Netanyahu said that if you consider the settlements illegal, you are guilty of an exile mentality. Exile mentality means Jews like me who want peace. We don't want wars. We don't wage wars. We try to live. We live in peace wherever we are. We don't want to conquer anybody. We don't want any of that. And we never did. Zionists had to be the opposite.
Right.
They looked at us as weak and cowardly. Unmanly was a word that they often used. And they created a new type of Jew, and they called it a new Jew, the new Hebrew man. That they said literally, it's an overcorrection for the Golos Jew. So if you want to know what a Jew would do in a certain instance, look at what a Zionist would do, and the Jew would do the opposite. If you want to know the personality of a Jew, look at the personality of a Zionist, and the personality of a Jew is the opposite. These are not my words. Vladimir Jabotinsky made a eulogy on Theodor Herzl, who died in 1904, and he said that Herzl is such a great Zionist because he's the exact opposite of a Yid. He used the then derogatory slur.
Yeah, Yid.
Right, for Jew. He says, Yid is ugly. He was handsome. A Yid is scared. He's courageous. And he said that if you want to know what a Zionist is, take every characteristic of a Jew, imagine its diametrical opposite, and that's a Zionist. He used to call them Hebrews. That's what they called themselves. It's not me saying that. He gave me the idea. I never would have thought of this. It's the exact opposite, except for Jabotinsky. They wanted to create people fierce, or in Jabotinsky's own words, in the Betar anthem. Listen to this. Here's how it goes. There's a Betar anthem, and you can get this on YouTube, even in English, if you put on Betar anthem. Betar was his youth group. Jabotinsky's youth group, extremely militant, fascist even. The song started off like this: Betar, Migovri kavon va'afar, from a pit of decay and dust. That means people like me.
Right.
Bedamu bayeza, with blood and sweat, yukam lanu geza, a new race will arise to us. Gaon, proud, nadiv, donating, giving, ve'achzor, and cruel. That's what they wanted to create, a new race of Jews. Through blood and sweat, they will create a new race of Jews. A race, that's what it means. Geza means a race. Gaon, proud, nadiv, ve'achzor. Now, the truth is, many Zionists don't know this, but I have a theory, a very good theory, as to why Jabotinsky picked these three things. And the reason is, oh, there you go. That's the middle of the song.
Oh, okay. Brad, I just sent you another link if you want to actually play it. This
Okay.
works too.
Do you want? I was just showing the English translation as you
Yeah.
were speaking, but I can play
I
the
see, yeah.
actual song if you'd like.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Because it'll be
From the
easier
beginning.
to
This is the end
concentrate.
already.
Yeah, yeah. You full screen it, Brad, so we don't see the. Well, spell check.
Now, there's a lot of meaning to a lot of those words that your viewers probably didn't understand. But what you do understand is that this was sung like in the 1920s by teenagers. Die or conquer the mountain,
Right.
Belat Ameret, in the flames of revolt. Now, those three things, Gaon v'nediv v'achzar, the Talmud says that Jews need to have three characteristics. Rachmanim baishonim v'goim lechashsodim. Rachmanim means to have mercy. He used cruel, which is the opposite of that. Baishonim means, it's a very interesting word. Literally, it means shameful, but not shameful. In English, there's a word shameless. What is the opposite of shameless? So shameful would technically be the linguistic opposite, but it's not really. Baishonim is the opposite of shameful. Okay? That's what it means. That type of bashful maybe, but it's the opposite of shameless. Okay? Merciful, the opposite of shameless, and goim lechasodim, and kind, meaning to do kind acts.
Yeah.
So Jabotinsky took the kind acts and changed it to nadiv, which is like just to give without the personality trait. It's the act of giving. It's like a donation, is a nadova. It's like giving without the personality trait of kindliness, because that wasn't. And achzar, cruel, is the opposite of merciful, which is the first one. And gaon, proud, is the opposite of the baishonim, the bashful. So he really, that's my theory as to why he did he made those three things. and
Rahmanis is, I've heard that, like, people say
yes,
that in
yes,
Yiddish, right? Like,
yes.
it gives
So
me
It's Hebrew
right,
that
but
Yiddish adopted.
yeah,
Rachmanim are people who have Rachmanus, right? Rachmanus means mercy. A
right.
Rachamon is somebody who has mercy, and Rachmanim are merciful people.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
that's absolutely the right word. And Achzor, cruel, is the opposite of Rachmanus. And that's what Jabotinsky, these guys are proud. They're singing, we're going to be cruel people, a race, a
Right.
new race, a cruel race. So you see, what they did was, and you notice in the entire song, King David is mentioned, Jews are mentioned, crowns are mentioned, God is not mentioned.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Killing is mentioned, dying, to die or conquer the mountain. Blood, death, dying, conquest, revolt. This is a youth group. And this is 100 years of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, but that's the real Jew. That's a real Jew. Be a real Jew, you know?
Right.
So you can imagine why Orthodox Jews are against Zionism. They attacked Jewish identity, denied its existence of the identity that we have, literally turned upside down everything we hold dear and said not only they're going to do the opposite of us, but no, as Jews are now going to have the opposite values, the opposite character traits. And this is the real Jew. And if you're not like us, you're not even a real Jew. Could you imagine the attack on my religion, on all the goals and not to mention nationalism? The sin technically of nationalism is idolatry, because being a Jew means one thing. It means only one thing, that you are in a covenant with God, a particular type of covenant. Anything that you add to your Jewishness, because of your Jewishness, that involves things outside of that covenant is a form of idol worship. Because being a Jew is worship, and anything outside of God and his covenant is like an idol. Technically, idol worship in Hebrew is called avodah zarah, which means foreign worship, worship of anything outside of what our covenant.
Right.
Zionists are idol worshippers, and they're heretics, and they're antisemites because they attack Judaism. They literally want to turn it around. So that's the first thing. All the rabbis, every single one, including somebody may tell you Satmar is differently. It's not true. The Satmar rabbi himself wrote the reason why in Satmar they are so against Hebrew, the language Hebrew. He considered it a terrible sin to learn Hebrew, is simply because, and this is what the rabbi of Satmar said, because Zionism is nationalism. And they have their own criteria of what it is to be a Jew, one of which is language, which is why they created modern Hebrew. Learning modern Hebrew means that you are buying into that nationalism, that part of being a Jew is speaking the national Jewish language. And there is no national Jewish language. But if you think that there is, that's a terrible sin. Nationalism is idol worship, and every single rabbi, almost every single rabbi that was against Zionism made this comment, that Zionism is nationalism and nationalism is idol worship. Any nationalist feeling, action, it's like practicing a different religion.
Yes.
Oh,
sorry. I just want to give a very, I'm sure, butchering definition or non-justice doing definition of Talmud, because people keep asking in the comments, what is the Talmud? And for people who are used to like the cliff notes of things, hopefully this isn't too off. So obviously the rabbi has given a very nuanced, thorough, exhaustive definition and explanation of the Talmud, but kind of it has this as a cheat sheet. The Hebrew term, this comes from the Encyclopedia Britannica. The Hebrew term Talmud, study or learning, commonly refers to a compilation of ancient teachings regarded as sacred and normative by Jews from the time it was compiled until modern times, and still so regarded by traditional religious Jews.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, in its broadest sense, the Talmud
is it's sacred. It doesn't explain what
right.
it is.
No, this is just so for people to have like a little understanding. And then in its broadest sense, the Talmud is a set of books consisting of the Mishnah, which means repeated study, the Gemara, which means completion, and certain auxiliary materials.
It's all true.
Okay.
Now, ironically, the Zionists didn't like the Talmud because this is how this works. The Old Testament is full of wars. It's full of, if you look at it the way secular people look at it, it's bloody.
Right.
It's bloody. But the Talmud explains that that's not really the way it worked. That's not really how it meant. Every war, King David, for example, as you saw in that song, to the Zionists, King David is like a, I don't know what, Conan the Barbarian, with a crown on his head or something like that. To us, we look at him like a old scholarly rabbi with no muscles, like David and Goliath, that type of thing. And all the wars that the Jews won were miraculous because in those days, if the Jews deserved it, they merited it, they won. If not, not. And everything was done through prophecy and everything was done miraculously, like the description of Hanukkah that I told you. I'll tell you a story. About 100 years ago, there was a play that the Maskilim were the more modern, they call themselves enlightened Jews. We have other adjectives for them, but they were very much in favor of the Jews becoming much more modernized and secularized. And they used to make fun of the Jews a lot, and meaning the traditional Jews. And they made a skit. The skit was the Jews, as the Bible says, sometimes they go to war if the prophet says to go to war. And they're recruiting people. There's a special priest that recruits people. He says, okay, who wants to fight the war? There were many, many recruits. He said, but there are exceptions and not everybody's allowed to fight in the Jewish army. One, you have to be righteous. If you even do little sins, you're out. So many people left. If you are scared of the enemy, that means you don't have enough trust in God. You're out. If you built a house recently, you're out. Got married recently, you're out. After all the religious exclusions, there are only 2 people left for the whole army, 2 rabbis who actually existed, a Rabbi Soloveitchik and a Rabbi Kagan, 2 elderly, scholarly rabbis who probably, never picked up a stick in their life, never lifted their hands to anybody. And that's how it was. And it was funny. So they ran to Rabbi Soloveitchik, who died in 1918. So this is before that. And they said, what do we tell our kids? Like, what do we answer? He said, let's see what they said. And he saw the transcript or the review or something. And he said, yes, this is true. He said, this is true. And he went through the whole thing and he said, it's all true, except they left out one part. We won the war. That's how we believe Jews won wars. It wasn't because they had more tanks. It wasn't because they had more planes. And it wasn't because they had stronger muscles. It's because of that. And nowadays, since we don't have prophets, we don't have a Sanhedrin, a religious court with the authority to allow us to go to war. Jews don't go to war. Forcing Jews to go to war is a sin, and especially if you have this jingoistic attitude like Israel does, So first thing, we're against Zionism because it is an attack on Judaism. Is a hijacking of Judaism. Not only is it an attack on Judaism, it's a redefining, and what they did was they used things that are near and dear to the Jewish people, symbols. They said, whereas all the other people that wanted the Jews to lose their religion, they said, don't be a Jew, be ashamed of being a Jew, right? Be a secular, convert to Christianity or whatever. The Zionists did something different. They said, no, be proud to be a Jew. Be a proud Jew. Be a strong Jew. Be proud of your Jewishness. And like that song, except for one thing, they changed the definition of Jew. They took what we looked at as a holy land. Israel is a holy land. It's not a national homeland for 2 reasons. We're not a nationality, and that's not a homeland. Homeland, in the word in English, doesn't really say much about what a homeland is. But in many other languages, it does. A homeland is the place the nation was born. In French, la patria, Spanish and Italian have a similar patria. There's Mother Russia. And in modern Hebrew, a homeland is called Moledet, means the place you were born. And in Israel's Declaration of Independence, all the way at the beginning, it says, here the Jewish people were born. That's why Israel is looked at as a homeland. In nationalist philosophy, there's some type of organic connection, a mystical connection between people's ancient homeland, the place that birthed the people, and the people themselves. Again, that's nationalism. It's not a national homeland, it's a holy land. We look at it as a giant synagogue. It's a place where Jews always went in order to serve God better. And if you enter the Holy Land, you need to be more holy than you are in Paris or in New York. The Holy Land, it's like a synagogue. You don't conduct yourself in a synagogue the same way you do outside of it. And the Zionists took it. They took the Holy Land. They took God's backyard, that's what it is. A land that's as close to God as you can get on this world. And they put nightclubs in Jerusalem, the holiest city on earth. Ben Gurion said, others Zionists quote this from other Zionists, but on the same level as Ben Gurion, that will know Zionism was successful when you have prostitutes soliciting in Hebrew. So in Israel, prostitutes soliciting in Hebrew, they took the holy language, bastardized it, made it into modern Hebrew. They took the Holy Land, made it into some national homeland, filled it with all types of dirt, and they said, look how successful we are. They made Jerusalem into another Paris. That's not what it's supposed to be. They took even the Jewish people, they took the Jewish people and made it from our connection to God to a nationality. A good Jew used to be somebody who was closer to God. Now it's somebody who's loyal to the nation. We used to die for our religion, for the Torah. Now you die for the Israeli flag. Listen to that song, die or conquer the mountain or conquer the hill. They twisted everything from holy to political, from holy to national. It's a mockery of Judaism. But you know what? That's what they want to do. We're against it, but what makes it worse is that not only are they the only deviant movement that decided, again, the Bolsheviks were similar in a way, that being a Jew is not a religion, but rather a nationality, a people. They're also the only ones that said they represent all the Jews. The Jews are a nationality, they're a nation, just like the Zionists and Adolf Hitler said.
Right.
And Israel is the nation state of that nationality. Israel claims it's my country. Netanyahu claims he represents me. You remember when he came to speak to Congress to convince them to kill Barack Obama's Iran deal. Before he left, he said, I'm coming to represent not merely those who elected me, but all the Jews all over the world. He's constantly speaking in the name of the Jewish people. The Jewish people, thank you. Israel is officially the nation state of the Jews. It's not the nation state of the Israelis by Israeli law. In Israel, there is no such thing as a Israeli nationality. In Israel, there's Jewish nationality, Druze nationality, there's about 130 nationalities. And when there's Israeli citizenship, but nationality is not. It's Jewish. And when the state of Israel was brought to court, Ministry of the Interior was brought to court several times, because the people said, we want to be in Israel, we want to have an Israeli nationality. Israel's a nation like everybody else. The Supreme Court of Israel said, no, the foundation stone of Zionism, this is a quote from their Supreme Court, from Uzi Vogelman. He was the one that said this. Just retired, I think, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. The foundation stone of Zionism is the fact that the Jews, is the belief that the Jews are a national identity, not just a religious identity. And they need that for their politics, because they also said in that Supreme Court ruling that the right to self-determination does not belong to fractions of nations, but only to entire nations. So if it is the Jews who want self-determination there, If it is the Jews that are returning to their so-called national homeland, then they can invoke this philosophy that the Jews have a right to self-determination. But if the Zionists do not represent all the Jews, they don't speak for all the Jews, then they have no rights to claim the Jews are here for self-determination. It's not the Jews. It's a fraction of the Jewish people. You
Well,
see?
yeah, Rabbi, I want to bring Sam Biagetti into the conversation because I want both of you in conversation about the Talmud from very different perspectives. Actually, Sam is going to comment on something that comes up during this Candace Owens thing, which is I won't give it away. People will be interested in it though. So I'm going to bring Sam on. We'll continue talking about this stuff. Let me bring onto the stage. And by the way, if you haven't already, how are we doing in terms of likes? Let's see. Let's check it out. How are we doing in terms of likes? We got, let me check this. Guys, not even like barely a little over half have liked. If you haven't already liked, please give a thumbs up. It's a free way to support the show. Give it a thumbs up. And I want to remind people that they can support the show and see this full show because it's going to be a doozy in a good way. I think it's a good word, right? It's going to be long, exhaustive, interesting, fascinating. And if you're watching it live, you're in luck. You get to see the whole thing. If you're watching it later and you want to see the whole thing, you can find it at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. So now I'm bringing on to the chat Sam Biagetti, who is a historian and also the host of Historiansplaining podcast. So welcome to the show, Sam.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
You can hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Great. Yeah, well, I can just start talking, but is there something you want to?
Well, yeah, I wanted to. So we're going to take a look at this Candace Owens video as the jumping off, unless there's something you want to say in particular in response to this.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just say a little bit, adding to what the rabbi's been saying, he's been bringing this wonderful knowledge and this very important perspective that people don't know of Judaism beyond Zionism, right? Yeah. Which is what
I have to take care of something with my dog. I'll be listening, but I won't be on camera. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain things one can say to sum up what you've been sharing, Rabbi Shapiro, that the basic claim you could say of Zionism is that the Jewish people are an ethno-national group like other ethno-national groups. And I would say, for one thing, firstly, as a historian, nationalism is always based on a mythology where you take a very amorphous grouping of people who are always heterogeneous, intermixed with other peoples, and you imagine them as being this homogeneous block, right? And you try to pick out certain characteristics and say, well, it must be language, or it must be blood or ancestry that makes this set of people one nation. And that's never true, right? People are multilingual, everyone has multiple loyalties, relationships, connections. You can't just isolate a set of people in the world. And kind of nationalist ideology imagines the world as like a jigsaw puzzle, right? There are these discrete interlocking units like you see on the map, and everyone has to belong to one or the other. And one of the reasons why that never makes sense is because there are so many overlapping and interlocking communities of language, of religious belief, of tradition, of political interests and loyalties. And the Jews are a foremost example of that. Jews live in countries all around the world, speak different languages, have different citizenships, nationalities. And when you try to say that the Jews are a nation, it's an extreme case of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? And in order to do that, as you've been showing, you have to suppress the older traditional sense of the Jewish people as united by the Torah, the covenant, and this shared commitment, right? Berit, the covenant. That is what unites the Jewish people, which you could roughly say is a religious definition, right? Although that too is that's a complicated term too. But I think Michael Walzer, I remember, summed this up as well by saying that what the Zionists, the early Zionists, wanted to do was negate the adjustments that the Jewish people had made to living in exile, right? Which is sort of the condition Jewish people have been in, right? And live in different countries and participate in the lives of different countries. Yeah, do you want to jump in there?
It's true, but it's much more than that. Even when the Jews lived in, first of all, the Jews didn't always all live in the same place, even during the Second Commonwealth. But it's more than that. Even when the Jews were in the Second Commonwealth, we still defined ourselves by the Torah. It still wasn't a nationality. It was still a religion, following the national or the civilizational rules of whatever the Torah said. It's not just a question of how to live. It's a question of the definition of what a Jew is.
Right. Absolutely. And as we mentioned earlier, before we started the stream, if you go to this fraught question of what is a Jewish person, what does it mean to be a Jew? In traditional Jewish law, going at least back to the Talmud and really already integrated in even before the Talmud was compiled, a person is a Jew if they are born of a Jewish mother or if they convert. Those are the two ways. And correct me if I'm wrong, you would know more, but I believe traditional Jewish law holds that either way is valid and there is no discrimination. If a person converts to Judaism under a halachic process, they are a Jew, just the same as if they were born Jewish.
1,000%. King David was a descendant of Ruth, the Moabite convert to Judaism. The prophet Obadiah was a convert. Some of our greatest sages were converts. A convert is more than welcome. He's a Jew, because a Jew means you're part of a covenant. If you volunteered to be part of that covenant, you're in. That's it.
Yeah. And that fact in itself kind of blows up this whole underpinning of the Zionist ideology, which is that Jews are an ethno-racial group, right?
Mhm.
That's the assumption that the Zionist movement and many anti-Semites, certainly racial and biological anti-Semitism, they hold this in common. They think Jews are purely an ancestral group, that it's like a genetic condition. And people today sort of fetishize, like, oh, they're Jewish genes, and you can figure out from a genetic test. And I always say Jewishness is not a genetic condition. It's belonging to a group of people. And, and the traditional definition is religious, right? It's commitment.
I would say it's having a certain connection to God, not belonging to a group of people. There are many people, multiple people that have the same thing in common, but it's not a national thing. It's not a group of people. It's not a group of people related to each other, except through the fact that they have the same God.
Right.
That
is what constitutes.
That's it. Although I got to tell you, according to Israeli law, although that is what Zionism believes, Zionism contradicts itself many times, and this is one of them. According to Israeli law, a Jew who they consider a Jew, who's born Jewish, this ethno-national group, is entitled to the law of return, right? You don't have to be religious. You can be an atheist. However, if you were born Jewish, they had a Supreme Court case that ruled this way, and you grow up and you decide, Jesus is the Messiah. Muhammad is the prophet. You believe in another religion. According to Israeli law, you are not Jewish, and you're not entitled to the law of return. If you believe in no God, then you're Jewish. If you believe God's a Trinity, no. If you believe, I'm serious. There was a guy, Brother Daniel, Oswald Refusion, a Polish guy. He, in World War II, he ended up he became a Carmelite monk. He became a Christian. And he helped Jews escape the Nazis because of his position as a Christian. And then after Israel was established, he wanted to come to Israel through the law of return. And they had a Supreme Court case, and they ruled he's not Jewish. Christian can't be Jewish. An atheist could be Jewish, but not a Christian. It didn't make any sense, and it wasn't unanimous, which just goes to show you that Zionism really does not have an intellectually coherent definition of a Jew. It's not a question of right or wrong. Of course, it's wrong, but it's not. It's self-contradictory.
And it's religious when it suits it, right? And it's secular when it suits it.
100%. They invoke religion, usually evangelical Christianity. I'm not exaggerating when Netanyahu speaks about biblical exegesis. Usually, he's going to be speaking about evangelical Christian version of the Bible, not the Jewish one. I can give you examples. He once, when he, a number of years ago, I think 10, 15 years ago, he went to visit the Auschwitz death camp. And he said over there that, in his speech, that there's a prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, I believe, about dry bones coming out of the ground and growing flesh. And he said the interpretation of that prophecy is that the Jews were in the Holocaust, they were like dead, buried bones, and now Israel is here, and they're flourishing, and now they grew flesh, and now they're alive again. There is no Jewish commentary anywhere that has anything close to such an interpretation of that prophecy. However, the evangelical Christians, John Hagee, in fact, 150 years ago, the evangelicals used this prophecy of Yecheskel to predict, to say that the Jews need a state, and then they will grow flesh again. It's religion, yes, but it's not even Judaism.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of predicated on this weird. It's very contradictory, and it's predicated on adopting outsiders' definition of what Jews are and what Judaism is, and somehow trying to graft that into Judaism when they're really incompatible. And I think that, as we said, there's this common ground right from the beginning between Zionists and anti-Semites, right? That traditional Jewish life is weak, Jewish men are effeminate, and also that a Jew cannot really be a member of any other nation, right? And so if a Jew claims, even if he or she serves in the armed services, in the army of France or Austria, they're faking it. They're not really loyal to that country.
Dual loyalty trope, right?
Well, and I would say it even goes beyond dual loyalty. It's like fake loyalty, right?
Yeah,
the Jew is a
singular loyalty,
deceiver.
but deceiver,
Yeah, yeah.
And the Zionists said, we're going to change that. And they they overcorrected for that supposed problem that the Jews had. And that's why the Zionists are what they are today. They are literally an overcorrection for what they call the exile Jew.
But also in terms of the religious stuff, there also is, like, within Israel, right? There are religious, I mean, they like, things are closed on Fridays and Saturdays, right?
Yes.
So
Yes, it's interesting because there have been articles by Zionists that have said you don't have to be religious to not work on Saturday. It's the Jewish heritage. It has nothing to do with religion. There was an actual fight between early Zionists regarding whether it makes any sense to believe in not working on Saturday, or you should. Both sides believe that has nothing to do with religion. I mean, look what they did to Hanukkah. Hanukkah has nothing to do with religion. I mean, they made that song that all the religious interpretation of Hanukkah is just fiction. It's really self-determination. And Passover becomes a holiday that celebrates freedom from slavery, which means, of course, self-determination. And that's what the Zionists do. They secularized everything about Judaism, reinterpreted it into what they have now. And people think, honest Jews, innocent Jews, they think that if you have an Israeli that says, I want to make a Passover Seder, for instance, oh, that means he's interested in Judaism and the religion. No, it doesn't mean that at all. The streets of Jerusalem are mostly named after Jewish personalities, biblical, religious, Zionist. But you know that there is no street named after Moses in all of Jerusalem? There's no street named after Abraham in all of Jerusalem. Because according to the Zionists, and this is from Gretz, and Shlomo Avineri writes it in his book, the history of the Jewish people as a people starts with Joshua, when he went into the Holy Land. Remember, the Jews were born in Israel. Agretz, according to Shlomo Avineri, you're a historian, you would maybe appreciate this and maybe even know this, that he said that it was Gretz more than anybody else that's responsible for the idea of the Jews as a people as opposed to a religion. This history of the Jews that he wrote was the first history of the Jews to have this idea and to actually articulate it in a historical way, that the Jewish people are a civilization, Jewish people are a people, and they're connected to the land in a political way. Shlomo Avineri is a book called The Making of Modern Zionism. That's where he says it. And they literally took everything out of Judaism. They ripped out the insides, the soul of Judaism, left an empty husk, and said, no, this is the real Judaism. We improved Judaism. Which is why they get so upset when the Haredim don't want to become Zionists. They think like, what do you mean? We saved you. We improved you. We made an evolved version of you. You guys are disgusting. We're the new Hebrew man. Why don't you want to be like us?
What is the definition of Haredim? Is that Orthodox?
It was an Israeli term, and the reason is because when Israel had a chief rabbinate. They had a chief rabbinate even in the mandatory period because it was under Britain, and Britain has a no separation of church and state. They have a chief rabbi too. So the Jewish community, the religious community in Jerusalem said, we don't recognize the Israeli rabbinate. They're Zionists. We're making our own rabbinate. And that was called the Eidah HaCharedis. The congregation was called the Haredi congregation. Haredi literally means like God-fearing. God-fearing. So it became a term, people who are associated with the non-Zionist community that rejected it are called Haredim. It's kind of a nickname. And it later came to America. It started in Israel.
Okay, got it. So I wanted to shift a little bit to the question of the Candace Owens controversy, because Candace Owens is such an important figure or intellect, but because I think she has a lot of reach, and that there are a lot of people who maybe wouldn't usually listen to her, but because of the stuff she says about Israel, she's getting, I would say, maybe new listeners. I mean, this is a whole question of, like Russell Dalabar from Do Dissidents was saying last week, a lot of people are anti-Semites pretending to be anti-Zionists. I think that there are some people who are actual dupes and hear what someone like Candace is saying about Israel and think that maybe she's not an anti-Semite, she's just an anti-Zionist. And then there's some people who know very well that there's anti-Semitism in there. But I want to play this clip of Candace Owens talking about the Talmud. And then I wanted to play a clip of her talking about Jewish slave owners. So, Sam, you follow this more than the rabbi or I do. Tell us about this beef between Shapiro and Candace Owens about more or less
Ben Shapiro, not the rabbi.
Not Rabbi Shapiro, Ben Shapiro. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Talk about idol worship. Okay.
Well, it's a very complex saga, and I'll try to briefly just describe. Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10th this year, and it was a very shocking event. It was unanticipated, and a lot about it is suspicious. So there is a suspect who's been charged. Many people have many reasons why they are skeptical that he's the real culprit or that he acted alone. And among those reasons is the fact that Charlie Kirk's security team didn't do any of the standard things a security team should do. They didn't look around and check the roofs. They didn't put up a drone. They didn't, when he was shot, they didn't draw their weapons. They didn't give him first aid. They didn't have an ambulance ready, which is normal for a large event. There are all kinds of things that cast a lot of suspicion on people who were close around Charlie Kirk, and tend to suggest that somebody was complicit. Now, in addition to that, alongside that, there is circumstantial evidence which raises suspicions about Israel. Number one being that Charlie Kirk had been a supporter of Israel. He was completely disillusioned. And in the last days before he died, he told colleagues that he was leaving the pro-Israel cause. Those are his words. It's in writing. This is not alleged. This is a fact. And that is one of the reasons that people have started to, do online sleuthing, dig up facts, comb through videos and photographs. And certain facts have come to light that further cement these suspicions. I would say they tend to especially cement the idea that there were people in TPUSA who, not the whole organization, but somebody knew. And they were working with someone else. Was that Israel? I can't say, but certainly it looks suspicious based on the timing. Candace Owens has kind of emerged, or you could say put herself forward as kind of a conduit and a clearinghouse for all of this online amateur investigation, theorizing. And she has kind of put forward and put her stamp of approval on certain theories and not others, right? She's been somewhat discerning. And her podcast is fascinating to watch. I'm not going to say I endorse it or endorse everything she says, clearly. But she has brought forward facts that are pretty compelling. And she's very serious and methodical about it.
Well, about some facts. I mean, she's serious and methodical in her analysis of certain things, right?
Well, in her analysis of the events leading up to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, not other things, which is a really unfortunate disjuncture. Right. But she turned against Israel several years ago. She was ahead of Charlie Kirk in this. She had a very serious break. She has had Norman Finkelstein on her show twice, and hears him out about his explanation of the history of Israel's persecution of the Palestinians and especially of Gaza. And that's, I think that's wonderful to see. And I think that's a great direction for people all across the political spectrum, including on the right, to hear, an anti-Zionist and a factually accurate, right, critique of Israel. This has made her a villain. She's made a lot of enemies, obviously. And what this has revealed is a really active and dramatic split within the American conservative establishment. Zionism has, as Candace Owens has said, I think very aptly, Zionism has infiltrated the American conservative movement and American evangelicalism in largely the same way that it has infiltrated American Judaism. And it's very similar. And very much the institutional establishment expects complete loyalty to Israel. And so she's become a bad guy, and the fights have escalated. She was being called an anti-Semite a long time ago for various reasons.
She did say that like Hitler's problem was that he was was when he went beyond nationalism, right?
Yeah, when he wanted to get involved in other countries. Yeah. And I sort of that was years ago, and I sort of wrote that off as ignorance. Right. And I think she did evolve some and acknowledge that, well, there are Jews on all sides here. There are Jews who don't support Israel. But that changed like a couple weeks ago when AmFest was held, which is TPUSA's big public event. And the feud became very obvious. You had the sort of Tucker Carlson, very anti-Israel, and Ben Shapiro, big defender of Israel, and kind of the figurehead of the kind of conservative, Republican, pro-Zionist establishment. And he went on the attack on Candace Owens. And Candace Owens responded in her podcast, and she basically went off on a tirade on Ben Shapiro, which is her business. I don't care. That's fine. I don't mind one way or another. She also then started throwing out some very anti-Semitic notions, right. old fashioned, like vintage anti-Semitism about the Talmud, and about Jews being allegedly responsible for slavery in the slave trade. So these are very complicated subjects, but
So I
it's
think
kind of come, yeah, it's just kind of come back into fashion to either make up or pick out quotes out of the Talmud and use them to argue that Jews are liars and perfidious and that Jews
Right.
hate non-Jews.
right,
Right?
exactly.
That's the notion that's been brought forward.
Yes, and we're going to actually take a look at that. And one thing I just want to say is someone in the comments said, well, then how come Zionists weaponize the Talmud, suggesting that the Talmud is actually Zionist or Zionist friendly? And I'll let you answer that, Rabbi, but I just want to say one thing from my ignorant perspective, which is that you can look at any religious text and see that it's been weaponized by opposing sides. I mean, you have that with the Bible, the New Testament, as some would call it, the Bible, and slavery, for example. Just one example. But do you want to, should we get into the actual video? Because I think that'll be a good opportunity for
Yeah, maybe if we can show the Candace Owens clip, maybe
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
a
that's what I
minute
meant.
of it.
Yeah.
So she's going to slam Ben Shapiro, and then it kind of goes even
Yeah.
further off
I
the rails
divided
from
into
there.
2 pieces so we can talk Talmud and then the slavery thing. Let's
Okay,
just
great.
show like a minute of Ben Shapiro in case anyone doesn't know who this guy is.
The future of this country relies on truth.
By the way, Rabbi, I have to say something. You, on one of the most viral appearances that you had on this show, was when I included a clip of you condemning, you were at a protest and you condemned Ben Gvir, and you said, if you're going to say the things that you do, then eat some pork, take your yarmulke off. And something I didn't realize, because Ben Shapiro, see, I think has some issues because he has black hair and he wears a black yarmulke, and I didn't realize he was wearing a yarmulke until kind of recently. And I think that maybe if he really is proud of being Jewish, I mean, for you, it's probably a good thing you don't want, and for us, we don't want him associated with Jews. It's a little late because that's kind of his brand, but he should be wearing like a navy or a red or other more colorful yarmulke. That's all I want to say. And you'll see now when you see him. I mean, I'm curious how many people could have seen the yarmulke, but let's just hear a little bit of what he had to say.
This country relies on truth because victory, true, real, lasting victory, cannot be achieved without truth. Victory without truth is victory for a lie, and that is no victory at all. And unity without truth is no unity. It is merely solidarity in falsehood. You see, we live in a chaotic time, in a time when lots of people are asking lots of legitimate questions about the conservative movement. What ought we to think about the relationship between free markets and traditional virtue?
All right.
How should we craft a pragmatic foreign policy that spreads our interests and upholds our ideals?
All right, so that now everyone knows who Ben Shapiro is, how you can barely see his yarmulke, and how annoying his voice is. Okay, so let's take a listen and view of this Candace Owens video. And by the way, Nate, can you look for the video of Candace Owens talking about Hitler? Because I want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting her and what she said. Because someone in the comments said you portrayed Candace's opinion about Hitler, which was only about nationalism and attention to America, as bad and as if she liked Hitler. So Nate, can you find that so we can assess her comments there? Okay. Okay, so let's watch this Candace Owens appearance on her own podcast where she's going to be talking about Ben Shapiro, who is a short king, by the way.
I am done with it. This one is so fully off of the mother effing plantation. Truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. And I say that on behalf of the world. I know you're going to get applauded by Konstantin Kisin and Andrew Christ is King Clavin and all of the people, the men who have to keep applauding what you do like you're a 4-year-old to make you feel good. But the rest of the world can't stand you. You're obnoxious. You have absolutely no values that exist outside of the Talmud. You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew, and I've learned what's in that Talmud, and I encourage other people at home to learn what is in that Talmud so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too, white men. He hates all black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals, that they have a right to own us, that they have a right to make us worship them, that they have a right to lie to us, that they have a right to sue us and take everything that we have, that they have a right to deceive us, that they have a right to treat Charlie the way that he treated Charlie while he was alive, only to then try to defraud the population into thinking that he is somehow a part of his legacy, that he somehow cared about Charlie Kirk and cares to protect the people that are working at Turning Point USA. Goodbye, Ben. Goodbye. The question is, how much more money is Ben Shapiro going to spend to make people think that he's popular? How many more articles is his father going to write under a pen name, Hank Berrien of the Daily Wire, under the pen name Hank Berrien, as he wrote while Ben was at Breitbart, before he turned his back and betrayed them too, because that is his nature. He's one of these belly creatures, sliver on. The question is, how many more weeks and years do we have to keep pretending like Ben Shapiro is relevant? It's an open-ended question. Of course, what followed Ben Shapiro on stage is somebody who Charlie Kirk loved very much.
And that's a reference to what followed Ben Shapiro on stage. Is that a reference to Tucker Carlson, Sam? I believe.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Who he fought for to the very end against the Jewish donors who were pressuring him, some of them because Ben Shapiro insisted that they do. That is Charlie Kirk's true legacy, and that is Charlie Kirk's true friend, just as I was and am and will continue to fight and ask questions about who killed Charlie Kirk.
Okay, so just a reminder, so it's Ben Shapiro on the one side and then Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson basically on the other. So before we get into something else that's really interesting that she said, Rabbi, anything you would like to respond to? I saw you go like this, hand on head, when she pulled out that book. Do you want to tell us about that book? Or anything else that she says about the Talmud? And I have the info about the book.
I don't know much about the book, but I know about
it's a book by August Rowling, published in 1871.
Okay, yeah, I have seen such books.
He was a Catholic priest who conducted a study on the Talmud that used racist pseudoscience that legitimizes anti-Semitism under the veneer of science. He fabricated quotes from the Talmud completely and mistranslated others. And this was proven by independent scholars in around 1884 after Rowling sued Joseph Block for libel after Block had claimed his study was nonsense. And then Rowling eventually dropped the suit.
I have no doubt the anti-Semites online not only fabricate quotes, they actually fabricate books in the Talmud that don't exist. They quote a book called Liber David, which is Latin. There is no such book. Or God Shas. I never heard of such a thing in my life. That said, it's ironic because there are two things. Number one, the Talmud doesn't say that non-Jews are animals. The Bible says that God created Adam, from whom come Jews and non-Jews in the image of God. That's what it says. Whether any given person is an animal or not depends upon his or her actions. Again, Judaism is a meritocracy. If you take a Jew who lowers himself and degrades himself spiritually, he can obtain the soul of a demon. Everybody chooses what their soul is, and everybody chooses their status. You could be a non-Jew closer to God than a Jew easily, depending upon the non-Jew's behavior and depending upon the Jew's behavior. The Talmud does look, even when it says, I'll give you a Talmudic, two Talmudic citations. When the Jews were saved from the Egyptians when Moses split the Red Sea and then the sea closed to drown all the Egyptians. Now, obviously, these weren't innocent Egyptians. They literally came to commit a genocide against the Jewish people. And it says over there that in the Talmud that the angels wanted to sing to God in gratitude. And God told the angels, why are you singing? My creations are drowning in the sea. It's not a time to sing. He had to do it. It's a sad thing, but that you don't do that. And another instance in the Bible, there's a story where Moses, when he was in Egypt, he was still the adopted son of Pharaoh. He saw a Egyptian beating a Jew, and he was going to beat him to death, and Moses saved the Jew by smiting the Egyptian. And it says in the Bible the words, he looked to and fro, he looked here and there, and he saw there was no people there, and then he killed him. There was no man is literally what it says. And the Talmud says, don't take that literally. This is what the Talmud does. It's an interpretation. It says that when he looked, he didn't look to see if he was going to get caught. The Bible doesn't need to tell us that. But he looked with his prophecy to see if there's any good ever going to come from this particular murderer. And before he lifted his hand to kill him, even to save the Jew, he only did so after he saw through his prophecy, his supernatural prophecy, that no good is destined to come from this Egyptian ever. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. He would have found some other way to save the Jew, I suppose. But no, life is holy, and it's absolutely untrue. And besides which, in regard to the comments that one of your viewers said about them weaponizing the Talmud, then it's not the Talmud they're weaponizing. Netanyahu doesn't go around quoting tractates of the Talmud.
Right.
He quotes the Bible. In fact, I have in front of me a book. It's called The Zionist Ideology by a guy, Gideon Shimoni. He is a professor in, Hebrew University in Jerusalem, all right? And he has a section called Zionism as a Secular Jewish Identity. And I'm going to read you 2 sentences where he speaks about the Zionists in their relation to Judaism. They favored religious traditions insofar as these could be pressed into the service of militant nationalism. They stridently extolled whatever strange of national assertiveness they could select out of the religion in Jewish history, and contemptuously rejected whatever smacked of abstract spirituality and political passivity. In their eyes, the Bible was the main repository of positive elements, whereas theological spirituality and passivity were the unfortunate legacy of the Talmud and later rabbinical literature. It is the Talmud that softens the seemingly bloody narratives in the Bible. It is the Talmud that explains the Bible in a way that created the Golus Jew that the Zionists hate so much. They want to go back to the biblical Joshua, and instead of a rabbi, they want to laud him, make him a role model because he killed out all the people before the Jews took over the Holy Land. Moses, they're not interested in. King David, you saw in that song what they think of King David. They associate him with pride, with revolt, with it's. They do not follow the Talmud. Never mind that Netanyahu isn't a religious man at all. At all. The settlers, guys like Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, they are Orthodox Jews. But again, the difference between us and them is, in a way, very similar to the difference between the Catholic Church and the evangelicals. They are idol worshippers, as far as I'm concerned. They're pagans. They're pagans who have things in common with my religion. The Christians have things in common with my religion: 10 Commandments, creation of the world, Old Testament, etc. The Muslims have things in common with my religion. There's theology, God, the first cause, necessary existence, etc. And the settlers have things in common with my religion. They keep Shabbos, they put on tefillin in the morning, but they are pagans who are Orthodox. And that quote you heard that I said about Ben-Gvir at that rally, that was paraphrasing, and I mentioned it at the rally, the prophet Elijah, who told the Jewish Baal worshippers, how long will you try to play both sides? If God is God, then abandon the Baal and worship God. If the Baal is God, then abandon God, abandon Hashem, abandon Judaism. If the Elijah the prophet were here today, he would tell the settlers the exact same thing, guys like Ben-Gvir. But you can't blame, the Christians tell me that Jesus and Christianity is clear in the Old Testament, virgin birth and all of that. We have a different interpretation. Muslims tell me Muhammad is there in my holy books. We have a different interpretation. That's why we're different religions. And the Zionists will tell you that Zionism is in my holy books. And we say that Jews for Jesus and Jews for Zionism, you could be born Jewish, but you are equally veering away from Jew equally. The Zionism is idolatry, simple as that. And if somebody's weaponizing the Old Testament, they do that much more than weaponizing the Talmud, much more.
Yeah.
It's just that they don't want to say that because the Christians also believe in the Old Testament.
Right. That is
Yeah.
the
You can
part.
easily
Exactly.
attack the Jews by attacking the Talmud, even though it's the Old Testament that has all the bloody wars. It's the Old Testament that has slavery. It's
But
the
they
Old
incorporate the Old Testament as opposed to the Talmud. So this is a really important point. So
Yes.
the reason that critiquing the Talmud as the problem instead of the Old Testament is because it gives Christians a loophole. It gives Christian critics of Zionism a loophole because Christians obviously, right, are based they see the Torah as the Old Testament, but they don't accept the Talmud. So
Right.
that's why the go-to for anti-Semites is
the Talmud,
the
exactly,
Talmud.
because that's what
Yeah.
makes the
Yeah.
Jewish religion the Jewish religion. And
Right.
of course, not all Christians do this. We're
Right,
talking
yes.
about- right.
And not
we're
all
talking about
people who
anti-Semites.
criticize the
And
Talmud.
by the way, I have in front of me a paper that was made by the PLO in 1970. It's about the Talmud. And actually, you know who told me how to pronounce this? Muan Rabbani.
Oh, wow.
Backstage at in one of your shows, I asked him, how do you pronounce this? There's a book called Al Talmud Waseyunia, which means the Talmud and Zionism. And I may be mispronouncing it again because Muan told me this a long time ago. And there's a guy, a Muslim scholar named Asad Razouk, and it was under the guidance, the editorial guidance of the PLO Research Center's longtime director, Anis Sayeg. And again, I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciations here. And they were talking about the Talmud and the protocols of the elders of Zion, about these theories that Pax Judaica and the Jews want to take over the world. And this PLO, the research center, they said, no, this is anti-Semitism. And don't bother with this. It just hurts our cause. And I want to quote from this book.
See, I didn't even realize you're so close to it, Rabbi, that I think this was very helpful. I'm like, okay, that's why they go to the Talmud. Sam, did you already realize this?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's why
why
they go
they
to the
go-
Talmud
okay.
because that's not their
Well,
not their material. That's just Jews'
abso-
material as opposed to
yes.
the Old Testament, which they incorporate into theirs.
I'm quoting from
Absolutely.
the
Go ahead,
introduction-
Rabbi.
I'm sorry. I'm quoting from the introduction to this book. The European tradition of anti-Semitism and hostility toward the Jews and oppressing them for religious or other reasons is a legacy with a weighty burden on the contemporary Western world. There are still European countries and peoples that sink to the ground under it and suffer because of it in a variety of ways, despite all the attempts to get rid of it and overcome it or to transcend it by means of a guilt complex. Now listen to this. Why should we, this from the PLO, why should we burden ourselves with such matters that harm our cause and disfigure its reputation and undermine its liberational and nationalist character? Disdain for facts will not serve our purposes at all. That's from the PLO Research Center.
Wow, that's
And-
fascinating.
But because of what Israel's doing now, the blowback against Jews and there is contaminated discourse all over. When Trump called COVID the Chinese virus, they were beating up Chinese people in Chinatown here. And when they were beating up Russian people because of the Russian-Ukraine war, and we know what they did to Japanese people during World War II, right? There is such thing. But the Jews are uniquely blamed for the actions of Israel, and that's because the Jews are uniquely forced by the rhetoric that Israel spouts to be associated with Israel. It's very simple. Israel calls itself the state of the Jews to be doing what it does in the name of the Jews. Russia doesn't claim to be doing everything in the name of the Russians, and Japan never claimed to be doing what they did in the name of the Japanese Americans. Aside from which, it is unforgivable about what Israel does, because there are people discussing this about how Jews are being blamed for what Israel does, and why should you blame the Jews for what Israel does? It's comparable to blaming the American Japanese for what Japan does. It's not, because if you want to blame the Israelis for what Israel does, is American Israelis all over the world, because Israel's the one involved in this Gaza debacle, then fine. I'm not saying it's it's criminal. But that's comparable to blaming innocent American Japanese for what Japan does. But Jews have nothing to do with Israel. I'm not American Israeli. That's the thing. Israel has convinced the world that they are the state of the Jews. By the way, that's the worst thing for the Palestinians, because if Israel's the state of the Jews, then the Palestinians are foreigners there. If Israel's a democracy, the state of Israelis, or whatever you want to call the country, one person, one vote, then you have a one-state solution. But the whole idea, the whole thing that's causing this conflict is that Israel wants to be the state of the Jews. Like they said, the Jews, the nation of the Jews, want self-determination. They came to their ancient homeland. But Israel has nothing to do with the Jews. What do Australians have to do with Israel? Because they share a religion? That's not what Israel wants, because Israel wants not only that the Jews are a nationality, not only are the Jews to Israel like Japanese Americans are to the Japanese. Israel speaks for the Jews. Japan is to the Japanese what Israel is to the Jews. This is a crime that Israel commits against the Jewish people. They use us as human shields. And now in Australia, Israel is running around saying it's because of they have nothing to do with it. The fact that it's blowback from Israel has nothing to do with it. And literally, Jews are human shields, and now they're using it to leverage this to say, look, Israel is right. More people have to support Israel, because people didn't support Israel, because Australia recognized the Palestinian state, and that's why they're killing the Jews. That's crazy. That's crazy. Israel, they don't care about Jews. They never did.
We do, though, Rabbi, have to, I feel like, grapple with the fact that there is. I mean, I clearly, we've debated this, whether I should say, as a Jew, I oppose Israel, right? We've had a whole debate on that.
We've had a whole debate about this, yes.
But we do have to grapple, I think, with the fact that there is a lot of Jewish institutional support of Israel. And even, I mean, I guess the stats are always kind of debatable or up for grabs, but what are the stats now? Sam, do you have the latest numbers, or do you, Rabbi, in terms of Jewish support for Israel?
Well, it depends what you mean by support for Israel. The idea that Israel is the state of the Jews, I guarantee you go to people that support Israel, let's say in their fight with Gaza or the Palestinians, and you ask them, is your country Israel or is your country America? Do you agree that the Jews are a nation and Israel is your country? They will not agree. Many will not. That means that they do not agree with Israel as a Jewish state as defined by Israel. The reason why there are so many Zionists is because they don't know what Zionism is. These guys that are supporting Israel are all supporting Israel because they think that all Israel is a bunch of innocent people that want to sip lattes in a Tel Aviv cafe and just live and let live, and the crazy Haredim in Jerusalem and the crazy Palestinians in Gaza just want to ruin life for them, and all they want is to make a safe place for Jews. No, that's not what they want. It's an ideology, Zionism. It's an ideology that most Zionists, the more you know about it, the less anybody could agree with. Never mind Gaza. Secondly, it doesn't matter. The question is, as a Christian, do you support Israel? If you're a Christian, there are two factions. There are evangelicals and Catholics. So even if there are a lot of Jews that support Israel, there are many Christians, millions in this country that support Israel. But there is no Christian who's a Catholic that's saying, well, I have to say, as a Christian, I'm against what Israel's doing. No, because you are not.
Maybe evangelicals feel like that.
What? That's true. But
Right.
I'm not of the religion that the Zionists worship. I am not a Zionist. Theologically, religiously, ideologically, we have nothing to do with the Zionists. I want to tell you, the largest, you don't hear about us, and that's why you don't hear about anti-Zionist Jews, because, I
Right.
mean, I grew up in the largest. Forget Satmar. Satmar's vocal about it, because I once mentioned to you, the Satmar Rebbe said we have to tell the whole world that we're not responsible for the Zionists. Since 1969, he said that. That was his mandate for his Hasidim. Incredible foresight. He said, listen to this, Sam. A matter of hours after the Six-Day War was over, in 1967, I'm sorry, I said 69. I'm sorry, I mixed it up when the Mets won the World Series. In 1967, when that was a real miracle, when Israel won the Six-Day War, a few hours afterwards, this rabbi got up and he said, and all the world was celebrating and what an incredible feat it was, especially the Jews. He said, this is a terrible thing. This so-called victory is going to, the provocations that are going to take place and the anti-Semitism that will result from it, this is unspeakable. And therefore, it is a great mitzvah, a mitzvah for the Jews to tell the whole world that a mitzvah is in this context, it means a good deed.
Good deed, yeah.
It's a good deed. It's a merit. It's a great thing to do, to tell the whole world that the Jews have nothing to do with Israel and they're not our representatives, because they are, when people think that Israel is representative of the Jews, they transform into anti-Semites. This, he said, a few hours after Israel won the war in 1967. But other Jews, where I grew up, I didn't grow up in Satmar. I grew up in the Lithuanian, they call it, groups. And I went to the largest yeshiva in the world in New Jersey. They're anti-Zionist. You're not going to find an Israeli flag. But anti-Zionist means we have nothing to do with Israel. Israel's wars are Israel's wars. We're going to pray for peace and everything like that. But the country, they're foreign. They're like China. You're not going to hear them getting involved because, and as far as religious reasons to be outspoken, look, you know how many people don't understand Judaism? We're not a proselytizing religion. There's no reason for Orthodox Jews to go on podcasts and everything and tell the world, okay, let me explain to you about Judaism. It's not really Zionism. We don't do that. I do that because I see the wisdom in what that rabbi said. I see it, you know? And so I also have studied Zionism for all of my adult life and much of my adolescent life as well. This is not history to me. A lot of these things were current events. I remember them. So I know the importance of not separating Jews from Zionism. Jews are not connected to Zionism. To clarify that Zionism is its own ideology, and Jews, the largest yeshiva in the world, is anti-Zionist. They recently prohibited any of their students or anybody that follows them to vote in the World Zionist Organization elections. They said it's a severe sin. The largest ultra-Orthodox, let's say, advocacy organization, Agudath Israel, they also are not, they're not pro-Palestinian. That's not the point. The point is not pro-Palestinian. The point is that they're not involved. They're not involved. And for somebody to declare himself a Zionist would be a sin to all of these organizations. They also declared that it's prohibited to vote in the World Zionist Organization. That doesn't mean that they're going to protest with Palestinian flags. On the contrary, anti-Zionism means that the connection between Jews and Israel does not exist. Israel is not the state of the Jews. Zionism says, this is Zionism. What Japan is to the Japanese, Israel is to the Jews. Without Zionism, what Japan is to the Japanese, Israel is to the Israelis. If you are an anti-Zionist from an Orthodox perspective, that means that Israel has nothing to do with the Jews. They invented their own religion. It's opposed to mine. Mine is opposed to theirs. They are an enemy religion, actually. But as far as their politics are concerned, Zelensky's also Jewish. We don't have to object to what Zelensky does if we don't like it. Everybody understands it's not us, right? It's the same thing over here. Somebody could be pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian in their politics, half-half, whatever it is. Nobody likes Hamas. Nobody likes Hamas amongst the Jews, that's for sure. But Israel has nothing to do with us. And Israel wants you to be connected to them. They want the Bondi Beach victims to, you know what somebody told me when I mentioned about how Israel does, they say I'm blaming the victim.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not blaming the victim. I said, the victims are the people in Australia. I'm blaming the government of Israel. I'm not blaming the victim. You know, if you could blame Netanyahu for October 7th, and many people do, that's not blaming the victim. So for October 7th, you can blame him, but not for Bondi Beach. Then now that's blaming the victim. And they said, well, no, but Israel represents all the Jews. That's why it's blaming the victim.
Yeah,
But Israel doesn't. Just like you could blame Israel for October 7th, for not taking care of security or whatever it is, and for propping up Hamas. You
or
could
for killing
blame
its
them.
own.
Exactly. This is the result of Zionism, where anybody thinks that the people in Bondi Beach are connected to a foreign country, the perpetrators of that atrocity, who think that the Jews are connected to Israel because Israel calls themselves the Jewish state, and they say they speak for the Jews. And they say that the Jews are a nationality and they're their state and they exist to help the Jews. They bomb Gaza so the Jews should have a homeland. And these are and some of Jews actually have Israeli flags in their synagogues. Those are Zionists. But those are Zionists. They're not the non-Zionist Jews. It's completely different. It's a incredible danger for Jews. And then the Zionists go and say, well, if you talk like this, you're encouraging anti-Semites and you're encouraging Hamas. We have to stand strong with Israel. It's not true. It's the opposite. Anti-Semites don't go around quoting me. The anti-Semites go around quoting Zionists. David Duke wrote an article about me. And davidduke.com. If you Google David Duke and Yakov Shapiro, it'll come up. It's an old article. And he wrote that I'm a liar. When I say that Judaism is not Zionism, don't believe me. Don't believe me. Judaism is Zionism. This is what David Duke said on all the Nazi websites. They all say Judaism is Zionism. All the anti-Semites are saying this. Adolf Hitler said that the Jews are a nationality because the Zionists say so, and the non-Zionist Jews don't disavow the Zionist Jews. This is what Hitler wrote. Hitler wrote this in Mein Kampf. This creates anti-Semitism. Separating the Jews from Israel alleviates the synthetic anti-Semitism that's created by Israel. This is not classic anti-Semitism that they had in Europe. This is the same type of response that when they beat up Chinese people in Chinatown. This is synthetically produced anti-Semitism, political anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism that's unjustified, criminal, but predictable.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Unjustified, criminal, but predictable. Well, I actually want to, before you leave, Rabbi, I want to show a video that's related to this. So after the Bondi Beach massacre, Israel put a list of accounts, organizations, and people who are the worst anti-Semites in Australia. Caitlin Johnstone was at the top of the list, someone who's not anti-Semitic, but critiques the actions of the State of Israel and supporters. But also included is Anthony Lowenstein, an Australian anti-Zionist who's also Jewish. And we also have a video that of Jews. Okay, we also have a video. And again, this was a celebration of Hanukkah. 15 people were killed, including a Holocaust survivor and a 10-year-old girl. Let's take a look at the way that this incident was weaponized by Israel supporters. And here is a panel aired by Fox News on December 16th, hosted by Trace Gallagher soon after the massacre. And it features LA Mom magazine founder Shirin Yadegar and the Chabad rabbi from Bel Air, Chaim Mentz. And there's a lot of misinformation in this video, just a heads up. But let's take a listen and a peek at this video. Brad, what do I need to tell people? Hold on a second. Mikey, come here. Start telling them about the Patreon and everything.
Yeah, I would just say that she needs to tell you about, if you are watching this live, you're in luck because you got to see all of this 3+ hour live stream with Rabbi Shapiro and Sam Biagetti. And to see the whole thing, if you're watching later, you can just on patreon.com. Oh my goodness. What in the world?
Look at how cute he is. Look at that underbite.
Oh my gosh. What is that the handkerchief? Is that a he
Yeah.
wanted down.
Yeah.
Is that a watermelon
That-
handkerchief?
No, he has a watermelon and a keffiyeh we put together. This is a Christmas one.
Oh, very nice.
I couldn't find the Hanukkah, the blue and white Hanukkah one. I'm just kidding, yeah.
Boy, now I normally, you'll never hear me say this, but I have a hankering to go revisit all of this backlogged Candace Owens material.
I know.
Because I'm like, boy, if Sam is pushing back on me, I'm questioning my understanding, because he's one of the people that I'm like, well, he comes with the receipts, so I need to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly.
Yes. And there's one other thing I want to do, which is show people a cute thing of my dad and my friend Lena. Lena's kind of like a she's like my honorary goddaughter. I think that's a fair way to describe her, right? So I just want to show. I'm gonna text you, Brad. Can you like put these in a? I just have 3 individual photos I want to show. So
Sure. Are you gonna send them to me?
yeah. So here's
Okay.
one. Okay. Brad, 1 second. This is a really cute thing, guys. Okay. So there's that. And then there is this. Okay. I'm gonna send you this.
And thanks everyone for sticking around this long.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hope everyone's having a good holiday and New Year's Eve.
1 second. I have to show one more thing.
Okay. This is the part of the program where the fourth wall comes down.
Big time, yeah. Okay, and then this is the last one. So I just wanted to show a cute little thing. Okay. So
then if you want to maybe tell everyone about Patreon, etc.
Sure, yeah.
By then I'll have it set up for you.
Great, yeah. So you're just gonna get to see a little.
Oh my gosh, whoops-a-daisy.
What?
Sorry about that.
Oh, you. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Please do become. Oh my God, what a great show! Thanks, Katie, Brad. That monster Katie showed. That monster. Oh my God, monster. That he is like he's beautiful, and he has a beautiful underbite. I can't believe I see Sam backstage making a disturbed face because he's like, how could they call Bucky a monster? I know, he's the cutest thing ever. But please do support the show. Patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And you can, yes, the most beautiful monster, exactly. And well, it's not a dog, let's be honest. Yeah, it isn't. It's not exactly a dog. Let's see. I'm not sure what Katie's expecting for this 2026 year, but I'm curious to hear what she anticipates about it. I don't know. I'm too tired to figure that out right now. I mean, hopefully the end. Hopefully something happens with Israel. Something good for the people of Palestine. I know that sounds ridiculous because I can't even figure it out. Partly it's because I'm also really tired and I'm sick. So
no, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
To wish for.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Let's see.
You wanna put up the photos that you mentioned?
Oh yeah. So here's a cute. This is a little heartwarming because there's so much terrible stuff in the world. So here's my dad who looks like Einstein, and here is Lena who's like my goddaughter, and she is so cute. And she loves my dad. She calls him, she has a dad, but she calls my dad the daddy. She calls him the daddy. And she goes to me, she's like, the daddy is cute. She goes, the daddy is cutest as hell. Have you seen that face? Have you seen that face? It's so cute. He's so cute. And she goes up to him and she's like, I need a squeeze. And she gives him a hug. Okay. So freaking cute. And then look what she got him for Christmas. She got him this ornament because she says it looks like him, which it does. Not maybe the features don't, but here's what she's talking about. Note he's wearing so my dad's like a real mad scientist, absent-minded professor. And so he wears, and he always wears like a jacket or a sports coat. And then he always has at least one book or one, like a bunch of papers, book or both in his hands, and then glasses. And so here's the last image. You see, if you zoom in at on the bottom one, you can see here, indeed, he's wearing the blazer. He has the papers in one hand and the glasses. And then behind him is like 1/70th of his book collection. Yeah. I cannot tolerate so much cuteness. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. We'll also show another time an adorable video of her and Bucky. We have to show that video of her making up a story about the Bucky. She had like a nature book. She was just like making up a story, and I asked her if she could tell me a story about Bucky. And so she's like looking at, and her mom was sitting next to her trying not to laugh because she's looking at her book that's like a book of photos. And so it's just random. It's like, the Bucky, my dog's Bucky. She loves Bucky. She's like, the Buckies like outside. They live in warm weather. When the winter comes along.
I was impressed by her imagination. Like the fact that, I mean, I don't, just anecdotally, when I've taught kids and you would give them that sort of like an exercise to do, I often found that the ones that read the most were the ones that like needed to ask for a new piece of paper to like keep going. Because when she was making up that story, like there were chapters.
Oh yeah. We'll show that another time. Yeah. We should do Patreon only behind the scenes. Yeah. We should have a Lena AMA with Lena. Yeah. Someone says your dad reminds me of an old school professor. Yes. Can tell you're your father's daughter. I see the resemblance. Oh yeah. We'll have to do that another time. We look so much alike. I'm sorry. Someone wrote my father died in 96. I'm very sorry. And I'm so sorry for everyone who's I know Prem Tucker made a really nice point last week about how, it's the holidays and it's really can be hard for people, and especially people who have lost people around the holidays. But even if not, I know the holidays really make people miss people. And so I do want to say something about how I am hoping that everyone is okay out there. If you feel lost in the world, I don't mean to minimize or pretend like I have a mental health degree or anything, but I do think that it's nice to try to volunteer. I mentioned that last time, right? There's so much stuff that you can volunteer with, like especially here, if you live in the States, there's, depending on where you live, but there's so many people who are undocumented who need help. There are mutual aid organizations that you can join. There are like kids who need tutoring.
Just reaching out in any number of ways.
Yeah. There are animals who, so again, I don't mean like there's a systemic thing happening.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've even coined the term, the loneliness epidemic or whatever. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'd love to volunteer, but I can't stand people. So do it to volunteer with kids.
Or dogs or cats.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Not kids are people.
You just really do it with kids.
Yeah. Someone said dad died 15 years ago. I miss him every day. He volunteered a lot. Yeah, I honestly think that I've said this before. I sometimes think it's so like the loss of your parents is so hard. I can't believe it's like built into life. I'm very lucky. My parents are alive. I got to meet 3 of my 4 grandparents. But people's parents, your parents won't. Well, now I sound like I don't want to be a downer. Anyway, obviously, hopefully, because you want your, parents want their kids to outlive them. So hopefully we all do, unfortunately, experience the loss of parents and of loved ones. And so definitely, my heart goes out to anyone who is dealing with that or has people who are sick in their lives, or anyone watching who is sick. So I
don't know if it would apply to anyone else except for myself, or if it would help anybody else, but sometimes for me, it helps me to think about how in a lot of ways I feel like you can't have everything has a beginning and an end, and you can't have the good without the bad, or the sweet without the sour, and the degree of good is also proportionate to the degree of sour. So you know, if it's a loss
why he
that you
like
feel really deeply, it could be because there was so much good there.
yeah
Um,
yeah
and yeah, and if
um
you try and avoid that, then you avoid all that good.
yeah yeah it's true. One other thing. Oh, okay. Let's see. Making sure that I'm not too late in this message. Oh, there's some more things that I want to read. Sorry. Uh, let's see. I feel like I need to. Let me just read some of the things that I didn't read. Elliot ZP super sticker. Thank you so much. Yabbits with gratitude. Thank you, Yabbits. Sparky, in 1492, the Ottoman Empire sent ships to rescue Jews from the Spanish Inquisition. Contrary to popular belief, Jews and Muslims have not been fighting each other for thousands of years. So important to know. This is not like some age-old dispute over religion. Zionism places man before God. Judaism places God above man. Sparky, Sephardic Jews helped found a New World colony of Georgia by saving them from a deadly epidemic. They arrived with a skilled doctor shortly after the first settlers in the early 1730s. Oh, wow. Justin Toll, I love your show, Katie. Oh, thank you. And that's a cute baby. Sparky, Volodymyr Zelensky is not Jewish, nor as he claimed to be. Others claim he is to shield Ukraine Nazis. His mother wasn't Jewish and he never converted. Internet's been scrubbed of this fact. I mean, to me, I think if you're half Jewish and you want to identify as Jewish, that's fine, but that's another. Okay. The eschatological Christian Zionists, such as Ambassador Mike Huckabee, are particularly problematic. Yeah, understatement. Hello, I'm a Palestinian, and I want you to know that we don't hold the Jewish people or religion for what Zionists do. Thank you so much. That takes a lot of patience and generosity, honestly. I will have to ask him about this. I'm taking a screenshot. How does Rabbi Shapiro differ? Tovia Singer, Yosef Mizrahi, and Jonathan Kahn love to see debate. President Nixon was a Quaker, though he never claimed to be a good one. There weren't many names thought of as Jewish nowadays in the New World in the 1700s. It wasn't until the mid to late 1700s that Jews in Europe were assigned last names, mostly Slavic and German. Yes, that is true. Okay. Oh, good. Hi, Brian. Have a happy New Year, Katie. Thanks for another great show. Don't let commenters get you down. Sorry about that. This has been illuminating. I thank you and your guests so much, Katie. P.S. Stay mad. I did do that. Normally, Candace Owens doesn't fly off the handle. Ben Shapiro was just good at pissing her off enough where she did. My sense of Candace Owens, I read this already, is she seeks to center herself in all things and checking facts do not matter. And then Sparky writes, kids are people too. That's well, guys, we will see you next year. Please do subscribe because I am going to be trying to do more streams about breaking news and also earlier in the day so that we can talk to people in like Europe and the Middle East and West Asia. And thank you for that. Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Brad. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much, Nate. Thank you so much, Phantomus Fanta. Thank you so much to Rabbi Yakov Shapiro. Thank you so much to Sam. And we will see you next year. Please support the show at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Please subscribe and please like this stream whenever you watch it or any clip whenever you watch it. Bye, everyone.
Okay, I'm down.